Hello, it's Grandma Karen. Now that you've done your homework and learned about some of the buttons and dials on your sewing machine, we are ready to learn about the presser feet and how to use your hands to sew. We will practice sewing on paper in our next lesson. Your machine came with several feet, bobbins, oil, a brush, and other accessories. A storage area or container may have come with your machine. The area may be part of the machine in the extension table, or it may be in a separate box. This machine has storage in the top. This is where the presser feet are stored. And it also has a compartment in the slide-on table where you can keep things like the brushes and the extra bobbins and things. Your storage may look like one of the following. If there's no storage system, find a container or a bag to keep these important parts of your machine. Most machines come with about 5 different presser feet. There's one for putting on zippers, one for making buttonholes, and others for special sewing tasks. Today we will look at the all-purpose foot. It is also called the zigzag foot or the normal sewing foot. Look in your manual to see which one is the basic zigzag foot. To help you recognize the all-purpose foot, we will take a closer look. Look at these all-purpose or zigzag feet. They all have an oval-shaped hole. This is where the needle goes into the fabric. Each has a slit in the foot, which will help you place the thread under the presser foot when you start to sew. Each foot also has a number or letter on it. The manual will tell you the name of each foot by its number or letter. The first foot says 1, the second one says J3, the third foot says 0A. Each brand labels them differently. Another feature on the all-purpose foot is a mark or a slit that shows where the center of the foot is. This is directly in front of the needle when it is in the center position. It will help you guide your fabric when you sew. We will use it when we sew on paper in our next lesson. Even the bottom of the foot can tell you a lot. The foot on the left has the oval hole found on the zigzag or all-purpose foot. The oval hole has room to swing left and right to do the zigzag stitch or a decorative stitch. The foot on the right has a very narrow hole. This is not the all-purpose foot, it is the straight stitch foot. The photos in this slide are not zigzag or all-purpose feet. Some of these may have come with your machine, others are optional presser feet that you can buy. We may talk about some of these in later lessons. Every brand of machine has a slightly different way of putting the presser foot onto the machine. Most machines use one of these 3 ways: a snap-on foot, a screw-on foot, or the Bernina brand, which has its own presser foot with its own way to attach presser feet. Let's start by talking about the snap-on feet. This photo shows 3 different brands of snap-on feet. This part of the foot is called the sole, like the sole of a shoe. The arrows are pointing to the little pin or pins behind the oval-shaped hole. Your machine manual may call this a pin, a peg, a rod, or a bar. This is where the foot attaches to your sewing machine. This photo is the foot shaft or presser foot holder that has been taken off the machine and laying on its side. The arrow is pointing to the round indented area, also called the groove or cutout. This is where the foot holder attaches to the sole. The other 2 photos show the groove while the shaft is still on the sewing machine. For this machine and many others, put the presser foot in the up position, and to remove the sole, you're going to push down with your fingers on the front of the sole. You hear the little click? It should come off, and then you're going to pull it forward or push it backward depending on the machine. You'll take the presser foot sole off to change to a different presser foot, or to clean the machine, or to change the needle. To put the presser foot sole back onto the shaft, you will need to put the presser foot in the up position again. Place the presser foot sole under the round groove on the presser foot holder. Try to line up the peg or the pin of the sole so it is directly under the groove. Put the presser foot down, and did you hear that click into place? Then you're going to lift the presser foot up to make sure it's in place. Sometimes you might have to do this several times, realigning to get that in the right place. For this machine, the foot goes on the same way, but after you get it clicked into place, you also have to push down on this big screw right there, that thumb screw. Each machine does this a little bit differently, so it's good to look in your manual to see how your machine does things. Some snap-on feet have a lever or a button behind the presser foot. Push this button. On this machine it's red, to pop off the presser foot. See how it just really popped right off. And it will go on like the rest of the machines where you line up the pegs underneath and put the presser foot down. The first two presser feet in these photos have a black or a red release button to take the foot off. The photo that shows the lever behind the foot on the right is a machine that does similar to the buttons. You push the lever to put the foot off, but you also have to push the lever to reconnect the foot. All machines are different. Please check your manual. Now let's talk about screw-on presser feet. These machines have a large thumb screw, usually on the left side of the bar or shaft that holds the presser foot in place. The black screw-on presser foot in this photo is shaped a little bit different than the silver presser foot. Putting them on the machine is similar though. To take the presser foot off, you will loosen the screw and take it and the presser foot off the machine. It is a good idea to have a plate or a bowl next to your machine to place all these small parts into when you're removing them. The pink arrows are pointing to the opening where the screw goes. I've taken this presser foot off by unscrewing it. Now to put it back on, you're going to place the prongs around the shaft, match them up with the hole that's there or around the screw if you didn't have to take it off all the way. Wraps around there like that. And then I'm going to tighten the screw. Your machine may have a similar one to this. See, I've got it back on there with the screw. For the Bernina brand machines, the whole foot with the sole and the shaft are put onto the machine. Some Bernina machines come with a shaft that uses snap-on feet. There's a small lever that holds the presser foot in place. The foot goes onto a cone shape on the machine and the lever is pulled down to keep it in place. Let's take a close-up look at me taking off the foot and putting it back in place. So first of all, we make sure the presser foot is up. We pull up this small lever called the clamping lever, put the foot down, and then you tilt it to the side, one of the sides to take it off. To put it back on, tilt it to the side, place this cone shape on the cone shape that's hanging down on the machine, and then you just push the clamping lever back in place. Most snap-on presser feet also have a screw that can be loosened. The holder for the snap-on presser foot comes off so that you can screw on special feet or accessories with the screw. We will talk about these in future lessons. I'm giving you a lot of information. You don't really need to remember it all. You just need to figure out what kind of presser foot your machine uses and learn to take off and put on the presser foot. A few sewing machines have what is called a dual feed behind the presser foot. It is used when thick, fluffy fabric is being sewn on. In the first photo, the dual feed, the black thing behind the presser foot, is not connected to the presser foot. In the second, it has been pulled down, attaching itself to the presser foot. For your first few lessons, you will not attach the dual feed if you have one, and you need to see your manual for more information. Only some presser feet work with the dual feed. Both of these presser feet soles are the zigzag or all-purpose foot. The first one is the normal foot. The second has a cutout behind the back of the foot. It is the one you use with the dual feed. You may not have this feature on your machine. Now that you understand presser feet, you are almost ready for our next lesson when you will start to sew. First, we need to talk about something you will use to sew, and that is your hands. Each of your hands has a job to do when you're sewing. It doesn't matter if you're left-handed or right-handed, each has its own job. Your left hand is the steering hand. When you steer a car, you steer gently and just a little bit at a time. We don't jerk the wheel to make corrections. It's a small, gentle change in our steering. As you sew, you will do the same thing. You will steer or guide the fabric as you sew along a line or the edge of the fabric along a line. It's important to be accurate. When you steer, you use your left hand and you will steer gently and move or steer the fabric a little at a time to make small corrections. Your right hand is the straightening hand. One thing the right hand does is take out pins. The right hand or straightening hand also prevents the fabric from folding and puckering on the bottom of the seam. It makes sure the edges of the fabric are matching up, and it rearranges the fabric and prevents it from falling off the table. The right hand also arranges the fabric, or the paper in this photo, which we will do in our next lesson, so it doesn't bump into the right side of the throat of the machine. It helps the fabric so it doesn't get caught where it shouldn't. Understanding what your straightening hand, the right hand, does might be a little bit confusing now. You don't need to remember all this. You will gradually learn what your hands do as we sew, and I will remind you, and so will your mentor. Just remember, left hand steers or guides, and right hand straightens and removes pins. We will talk about this and practice this in our upcoming videos. You've heard me describe a lot of things today, but your homework is not very hard. For the homework, you need to show your teacher, parent, or mentor that you understand and can do the following things. You can pause the video or take a photo. 1. Find the all-purpose foot. Is your presser foot a snack-on foot? Does the foot screw onto the machine, or does the whole foot attach to the machine? 2. Take the presser foot off the machine. Use the guidebook if needed to learn how to do this. 3. Put the foot back on the machine. 4. Tell your mentor what your left hand does while sewing on the sewing machine. 5. Tell your mentor what your right hand does while you're sewing on the sewing machine. I'm excited because in our next lesson you will get to practice what you've learned so far. You're going to sew on paper with no thread. We will also talk about sewing fast and sewing slow. You will practice using your steering hand and your straightening hand. See you next time. Now here's a note for the mentor. For the next lesson, you will need to set up the sewing machine on the table with the chair that you and your student found to be best for their sewing. Have the sewing machine unthreaded. No thread in bobbin, no thread on top. Print out the 3 practice sheets or look at them and draw your own. They are listed under the link to video 4.